a lot of sexperts out there will say, especially to women, don't worry if you can't have an orgasm. There's so many other benefits of sex. And I think to myself, ugh, come on. It's literally a learned skill. There are a million paths to orgasm. There's over 20 kinds of orgasm the human body can have. Why not say, hey, here's a step-by-step directions to actually have orgasms, and you can learn them, you just haven't yet. And everybody learned how to do it. No one knew automatically how to do it.
Because especially if there's younger folks listening to this, I actually don't even know what's out there in terms of education, but I think you probably want to steer away from pornography. Like that's not where 100%. You learn. That's not where you learn.
No, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right. Because it's staged, it's not real, and
it's male gaze focused. It has nothing to do with female pleasure. Most pornography is actually 96% of a random sample of pornography, according to a study in Time magazine, showed that it was degrading to women. 96% of the clips of a random sampling.
Susan Bratton, so excited to have you on today. I love talking to intimacy experts. Woohoo!
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Yeah.
I love talking about it too. I've been talking about it nonstop for decades at this point. And, it's so funny, but I never, ever stop learning about how to do what I like to call putting your sex life on an upward pleasure spiral, so it keeps getting better and better your whole life long. And I'm constantly learning. I always joke. One of my mentors, she said, there's always something more with sex. You never run out. It'll never run dry. It'll never leave you. It's always good, and it keeps getting better when you put your attention on it. And I've often joked that if sex were a brand, its tagline, it would be like, sex, there's always something more. That's what its tagline would be. And I do want to say one thing, and that is that when I say the word sex, I really don't want to alienate the people that aren't interested in intercourse anymore.
Right.
Because it's been conflated in our culture to mean that sex is intercourse. And I love intercourse, Sandee. As a matter of fact, one of the greatest works of my life is my orgasmic intercourse series of techniques, which level the playing field so we make love like women need it to be done, not just our male-bodied partners, because that's what we see everywhere is just male-oriented intercourse depictions. So, that is a very, very lovely part of sex, but it is just a little part of it. It's not all of it. And so when I say sex in this conversation, I really want it to be inclusive of pleasure, connection, and orgasm. And what's interesting about that is that a lot of sexperts out there will say, especially to women, don't worry if you can't have an orgasm. There's so many other benefits of sex. And I think to myself, ugh, come on. It's literally a learned skill. There are a million paths to orgasm. There's over 20 kinds of orgasm the human body can have. And so to think that you can kind of like mollify someone, like, don't worry. It's like, why not say, hey, here's a step-by-step directions to actually have orgasms, and you can learn them. You just haven't yet. And everybody learned how to do it. No one knew automatically how to do it. We think that we're just supposed to be good in bed when we don't get any education about it. When in fact, the more education you get, the better you get, the more pleasure you have, the more orgasms you have, and the healthier you are, the happier you are, and the longer you live when you keep your intimacy up. So I think those are some really important kind of ground rules in my conversation that I like to get out right up front. Because a lot of people will go, oh, sex, I'm off it. I don't want to do it anymore, because it's like this all or nothing thing where it has to be this, it's really only intercourse. And that's just not true. There's a lot of great ways to have all the benefits of intimacy, but to also learn how to make it work for you.
Yeah. And I mean, nowadays, it's intimacy with another human being. It's not just male or female, I mean, really, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
to some people it does, and to other people, whatever.
Yes.
But it's not just, and learning about it is really, really key.
Yeah.
And so let's start there about the
Yeah.
education behind it, because especially if there's younger folks listening to this, I don't know. I actually don't even know what's out there in terms of education, but I think you probably want to steer away from pornography. Like that's
Yes,
not where you
100%.
learn. That's
No.
not where you learn.
No. That's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's staged, it's not real,
Right.
and
And it's
yeah,
male gaze focused. It has nothing to do with female pleasure. Most
right.
pornography is actually 96% of a random sample of pornography, according to a study in Time magazine, showed that it was degrading to women. 96%
Yeah.
of the clips of a random sampling. So you don't want to learn degradation. And you see that in our country. You see
Yeah.
a lot of news articles about the problems that are happening from it. And I'm not anti pornography. I
Right. No, I'm not
personally
saying
don't
anti.
I
It's
don't
just if you
watch it
want
myself.
no comment. But
Right.
if you are looking for education, where do people go? Where's the best place
Exactly.
that people can go, no matter what your age, that you
Yeah.
want to learn more?
Yeah.
Because
You get
education is power, knowledge is power.
true that, mama. The best place to do it is to find someone who is a sex educator that you like, your
Right.
flavor. I'm not for everyone. My niche, if you will, is a very big mass market of heterosexual monogamous couples. That's mostly what I do. Is I speak to a man and a woman who are pair bonded and want to have really great sex that keeps getting better throughout their lives together. That's the big audacious goal, right? For many, many people is I love my partner and I want to be with them forever. And I want to have our sex life just keep getting more and more satisfying, doing more and more new things, having more erotic adventures, erotic play dates, honing our skills, expanding our orgasmic potential, feeling really happy and connected together. That's the largest cohort of lovers, but there are so many other people, and I'm not excluding them, but there are other sexperts who are, kink oriented, tantra oriented, BDSM oriented, gender non-binary oriented, gay, lesbian, you name it, pansexual, polyamory, swingers, lifestyle. There's like a million people out there, and you'll find your people. And the best place to find them, frankly, is social media and YouTube. That's where you'll find your people. So just following someone who can teach you the kind of things that you want to know, because as you mature in age, the things that you want to learn are different. And here's a really good, like, okay, what am I going for? Like, you can't make much progress unless you know where you're going.
Right.
And with intimacy and sexuality, there were really three basic buckets of exploration. One
Okay.
is sex techniques, actually learning pleasure skills.
Right.
So how do I go down on a woman? How do I give myself an orgasm from giving a male-bodied partner oral pleasuring? How do we have mutually orgasmic intercourse where it's not just him that's having it, but I'm having orgasms from it as well? How do we do yoni massage and lingam massage and things like that? So skills. And they can be really, really simple, one little technique types of things, or they can be big picture. Wow, I didn't even know I could have an orgasm giving oral to a male person, to a penis owner, as they say these days. And so
Didn't know that was a thing, but okay.
Well, gender fluidity, gender non-binary, not expecting that someone who has a penis is male, and
Right.
I have to tread all those waters very, very lightly now because I want to be inclusive.
Right.
So I do have to say things like the penis owner and the vulva owner. So technique, number one, but it's no good. All the technique in the world is useless without bedroom communication skills.
Okay.
So bedroom communication is Do I know what I want and I can confidently and safely ask for it? Can my partner receive feedback elegantly without emotionally caving in or
Right.
feeling rejected or like they did something wrong? Do we have a free flow of information? Do I honor my body's ever evolving changes where, I just want something different every day and I'm really listening to my body and asking for what I need? Does my partner not only appreciate my feedback, but grow and learn from it and become an even better partner? And do we have that free flow of we can say anything we need to and everybody's good? And then that moves into things like pillow talk, sharing favorite frames, worship and adoration, sharing fantasies, sexy and dirty talk, and how we like it. And so those are all various kinds of communication skills. So
Right.
that's number 2 is communication.
Okay.
So technique, communication, and then the third leg of that really stable stool is what I would call intimate wellness, or
Hmm.
and that moves into things like sexual regenerative therapies, reversing the atrophy of aging, making sure we are not suffering from loss of lubrication, painful sex, loss of sensation, difficulty climaxing, loss of erectile function, prostate issues, urinary issues, incontinence, all of that stuff that happens to our genital structures, because it can all be reversed. So a lot of people still are under this paradigm where we age out of sex, and that's
Mhm.
not at all the case. Like many things, the older you get, the more wise you are, the more skill and experience you have, the more confidence you have, the more gifts you have. And so pleasure is and intimacy is one of those areas that is even better the older that you get, if you don't have the limiting belief that your sex life ends after menopause and andropause, or some false belief system. So, and that moves into not just regenerative therapies, but also biohacking, sexual biohacking, to not only make what you have ageless, but even optimized for pleasure. That's something that, honestly, Sandee, that's what I get booked on stages to speak about, is
Really?
extending your health span by extending your sex span through regenerative therapies and sexual biohacking. That is appealing to people. People are afraid to invite me to talk about how to have hot sex. Like that's, I don't get booked on the stage for oral techniques or something, intercourse techniques. Though I should be. We should normalize these conversations, because really they're
Yeah.
just how-tos. It's literally like I'm the Julia Childs of hot sex. I write the recipes. You follow the recipes, you'll have the outcome. The human operating system is the human operating system. It works when you give it the right
Right.
inputs, which is
Right.
why all orgasms are learned and easy to learn. But that third leg of the stool, the intimate wellness, so technique, communication, and intimate wellness, really covers the landscape. So as you're thinking about, okay, what do I want my sex life to be like and how can I make it better? Often it depends on where you are and what you want to learn. And one of the things I put together recently was something called my sex life bucket list.
Hmm.
And it's essentially, it's at sexlifebucketlist.com. So you will know that it's, so that you can just hear me tell you about it now and not worry about where you can find it. It's there, and it's basically a downloadable PDF that you can print out at home. And the PDF has 48 erotic play dates on it that are
Hmm.
things that you can learn either for yourself in solo pleasure, which is as important as partnered pleasure. And I give you a 40-minute video where I walk you and, if you're lucky enough to have a partner, your partner, through these erotic play dates and tell you what they are and how they work and what you do and things like that. And you mark them an A, a B, or a C. A is, oh, that's at the top of my bucket list. It's like, yeah, I want that on my A list. I want to learn that thing. I want to have that experience. I want to try that thing with you. And B's are, it's not for me, but if you want to do it, I'm down to try it with you. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. I'm game. And C's are, it's not for me right now. It wouldn't be on my bucket list now, but never say never, because as you
Right.
mature in age and you gain more experience, some of those things you used to look at and go, I'm not ready for that. Now you're like, I'm ready. Let's go. And
I
so it
love
gives
it.
you ideas of things you can do that aren't just the same old thing, because especially in monogamous relationships where you don't have the variety of multiple partners, or you're not dating, or those kinds of things, it can get very boring. And that's often why couples stop being intimate, is that it's just not good enough for one of you, and it's boring. The
Right.
monotony of monogamy, that they talk about, and
Like, oh, here we go
introducing.
again.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's another chore. I got to check it off my
Right.
list.
And
And
that's
that's
the last thing
because
you want, is to feel like it's a chore, especially with your life partner.
exactly. And you don't want to
That's,
feel like
yeah.
that, but often one or the other of the partners feels like that. And that's often due to a lack of skill and experience, and then boredom.
Yeah.
So the bucket list gets you learning new things together, which generates new relationship energy and increases sexual satisfaction and confidence. So it's like, that's the solution. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't know. I keep thinking, I'll never forget, my ex-husband said this to me once. He goes, show me the most beautiful woman in the world, and I'll show you 5 men that get tired of effing her. Okay. Is what he said.
Mm,
And I'm like, and I like, I met him when I was 21. And
mm,
so, most of my adult life, I was with the same man we were together 25 years.
mm.
And I didn't know anything, and neither did he,
Yeah.
like we knew, and we didn't even think to explore that.
Yeah.
But it was just an interesting, because I was like, really? Because
Hmm.
I was so naive. And I'm like, yeah, but you get married. It's like till death do us part. Like, that's how naive I was. I was like, really?
Yeah. Well,
Like,
those are the
no.
paradigms. Those are the tropes
Yeah.
we're
Like,
fed.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I remember coming through the gates of the neighborhood that I used to live in, and my ex said, oh, rumor has it there's a lot of swingers here. And I go, what's a swinger? I didn't know.
Mm,
I'm in my 40s at this point. And I'm going, people do that? I'm like, you mean
mm.
people that are married to each other have sex with another couple? I was like, what? Like, my mind was blown. I was so young and naive, and I was in my 40s. I had no idea that
Yeah.
people do that. I'm like, wow, I've been living under a rock officially.
You haven't. That's how it is for almost everyone, but everyone thinks they're the
Yeah,
only one that didn't know or didn't get the memo. And I'll tell you that your 40s are the time of, for many, a sexual explosion of discovery and learning. Because when you're in your 20s, everything's new and you don't know what you don't know. In your 30s, often you're building your career, having kids, or both. And you're busy, but you're starting to realize, oh, okay, this is not as good as I was hoping it would be. It's not living out. The magic dream is not happening. And so by your 40s, you're like, let's get this rodeo going here. I want some more fun things. I want to have some more kinds of orgasms. I want to have some more experiences, such that when you get into your 50s, you've kind of learned a lot. And now you're starting to let go of your body image issues, gain some confidence, realize that pleasure is there the more that you learn. And if you keep going and you don't buy into these kind of ageist, oh, well, women are no longer even attractive when they're over 40. Why would anybody even want to have sex with them? That is the opposite of my experience. Of course, I am a pretty I have a lot of mass market exposure. And so there are a lot of people who have no issue saying, oh God, who would ever have sex with an old lady like that? Cringe, because I'm in my 60s. Um, I have such better sex than those trolls. They don't even know. I just get in my compassionate heart and be like, it must suck to be a creep like you. And you're going to die with nobody wanting to have sex with you, and your life will be shorter and less happy than mine. Mine will be full of joy. You know what I think is really interesting? I'm on a happiness solved show. And I think what's really interesting is how many studies have come out around the world from all different cultures that talk about how the happiest people are those who have long, pleasurable, intimate lives. That it's not just relationship. It's not just ending your life with a partner where you're not lonely, because loneliness is definitely the thing that erodes our
Hmm.
happiness for most of us. Some people are like, thank God I'm alone. I mean, I
Right.
understand that there are,
Right.
introverts out there that prefer the peace of being alone. But what I find interesting is that we're still in such a repressed mentality around sexuality that there'll be studies out there that say sex 3 times a week makes you live 10 years longer, makes you look 10 years younger, and makes you live the happiest life of anybody. But we're not shouting that stuff from the rooftops because we have these ageist issues. We've got sexual repressive fears. We've got, all of these limiting beliefs about our sexuality. And that is finally beginning to change because of podcasters like you who are willing to have the conversations that assure people that there's nothing wrong with them wanting to put their full attention on having better and better intimate pleasure and orgasmic satisfaction that is created however the two of you want to create it. I mean, I'm literally sitting here, sitting beside me are all of these
All your
tools.
toys.
Look at this. I'm
Yeah.
doing a show later with an Australian woman, and we're going to be talking about different tools that create orgasmic ecstasy in partnered play. It doesn't all have to be fingers and appendages.
Right.
We're in the 21st century,
Exactly.
and orgasms are good for you. They release hormones, cascades of good feel good neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. We create more testosterone when we have good sex. And what's great about that is it not only gives us confidence, it also helps us keep our muscles strong, which is very important as we age. It's all kinds of things for that. We increase our IGF-1, we increase our natural killer cells, which are what eat cancer. We increase our endorphins, which lower our pain response. We generate tons of oxytocin with skin to skin contact. And oxytocin is very interesting because you can kind of think about it in the world of hormone response as the antidote or the dilution of cortisol, our stress response. So the more oxytocin you have, the more love you feel, the more bonded you feel, not just to your partner, but to humanity. You're less annoyed by others. You actually like people better. You feel more awe. I mean, sexuality is a jewel in the crown that goes along with music, art, nature, delicious, healthy food, moving your body, dance, things like that. The love of family and friends. Intimacy is right up there, and it well could be the jewel in the crown of a happy life. But it's repressed. We don't get information. We're not given skills. It creates problems for us because, frankly, we would need a lot less of other institutions if we had better sexual sovereignty and happiness and connection to each other and source. So it is quite interesting that it's a tool to sexual repression is a tool to keep us down.
Yeah. Well, thank you for going into all of that, especially the three pillars that you were talking about and how our body responds to an orgasm. Because I was really hoping I was going to ask you about that. That
Yeah.
because I had no idea it was all of those things that you just listed,
Yeah.
and how important it is. I just know, boy, do you feel good, and you know, it brings you closer to your partner
Yeah. Or yourself.
or yourself.
It's a
Yeah.
great nervous system reboot as well. It's
Okay.
grounding and calming, which again, not even without oxytocin generation, it still will aid in lowering anxiety and depression. So it's a very good pharmacopoeia of of pleasure chemicals that are released, and it doesn't even require a partner.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so talk about the biohacking and regeneration or
Regenerative?
regenerative?
Yeah, regenerative
Regenerative,
therapies. Yeah.
the therapies. Yeah, what are some of those and how do they help and what do they entail?
Yeah. So I talked about the problems, the shrinking of the tissue, the thinning of the vaginal lining, the loss of erectile function of both male and female. It's really interesting. If you think about a penis is 50% of it sticks out of the body and 50% of it actually goes down and inside the body toward the testicles. But the whole penis, if you imagine it as a banana, is actually filled with erectile tissue. That
Hmm.
erectile tissue is spongy tissue that absorbs and holds blood. And so to achieve a male erection, you get aroused, blood runs into the pelvic bowl, it comes in through the penile artery and capillary system. And what it does is it runs in there and it expands very quickly and it locks off the smooth muscle tissue, the endothelial system, so that it can maintain a firm erection. The same thing happens with women. If I could open the banana, I'm doing a little demo here for those of you who are listening instead of watching us. I know you have a YouTube channel. What's your YouTube channel again? What's it called?
Sandee Sgarlata.
Oh, okay, Sandee Sgarlata. So you can see some of the demos and things on the Sandee Sgarlata YouTube channel. But if I took out the erectile tissue from a penis and I actually made it into a circle that comes to a point on the top, that's how much erectile tissue is in the vulva. We have the same amount of erectile tissue in our vulva as our male body partners do in their penis. But the penis has fast acting blood flow. Hemodynamics, it's called. I like that word. And the hemodynamics need to flow quickly into the penis. But in the female vulval vaginal system, it's slower. We get turned on, we get relaxed, our blood flows down into our pelvic bowl. And our vagina is not a gland. It's not self-lubricating. The blood plasma seeps through the vaginal lining and gives us the wetness for lubrication. That
Hmm.
takes us about 20 minutes. So if we
Okay.
start out not being lubricated, often it's just that we have to wait until the blood can flow. And
Right.
then the blood flows into all the nooks and crannies of our 3 erectile tissue systems in the vulvovaginal system. It's our clitoral, urethral, and perineal sponges. They're spongy tissues. And so
Hmm.
it seeps in more slowly. So men have a faster arousal. That's why if you've ever heard Emily Nagoski talk about spontaneous arousal versus responsive arousal, that men have responsive and are spontaneous and women are more responsive. It takes us a while to get turned
Hmm.
on. That's one of the aspects of that is you can see his turn on where ours is just a little slower. So we have to slow down
Yeah.
so our female body partner can kind of catch up and get it out of her head and into her body and start climbing her arousal ladder, which is a little slower. And I think what happens over time is that we lose the ability to get the blood down into the pelvic bowl. And that's because we start having atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries. We get
Hmm.
fatty deposits in our blood supply, our vascular system, and then it calcifies, which is why oral microbiomes are very important, because if you have bacteria in your mouth, it's getting into your blood supply, and then that's calcifying your arteries. If you've got tartar and plaque in your teeth, you have plaque in your arteries. It's a system.
Mm. Right.
And then it can't squeeze the blood. It's stiff, hardening of the arteries, stiffening of the arteries. It can't squeeze the blood into the penis, into the vulvovaginal systems, and it can't get us lubricated. And that is because of atherosclerosis, but it's also because of a loss of nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide, that's what Viagra works on, the nitric oxide system.
Okay.
And nitric oxide is actually a gaseous signaling molecule that squeezes our vascular system to push blood where we need it to go, to our brain when we're sitting here talking, to our heart and our muscles when we're exercising, and to our pelvic bowl when we're trying to achieve arousal and create pleasure. But the problem is that we have soil depletion, there's no nitrates in our soil anymore that go
Right.
into our vegetables. So we used to get nitric oxide production from leafy green vegetables, cabbages, arugulas, romaine, lettuce, kale, chard, spinach, beets, cabbages, celery, dill, mint, chives, green
And that's
things and
not
red
happening anymore.
things. And we have nitrogen depleted soils, so we don't get the
Okay.
nitrates that convert into nitrites. And if we don't have, if we use antibacterial mouthwash because we think we're doing a good job, we're killing off the bacteria in the little pockets in our tongues that actually convert the nitrates to nitrites. And then if we are also taking acid blockers, Tums, proton pump inhibitors, things like that, we're killing off our stomach acid, and that converts the nitrites into nitric oxide. So we've ruined the entire downline pathway, right
Mm.
from the soil and the vegetables to the oral biome to the stomach biome. And we have good intentions for these things, but they're not the right products to be using. They're actually aging us and exacerbating heart disease, which leads to strokes and
Right.
aneurysms and all of those kinds of things. So it's a slippery slope of bad information. And you can take nitric oxide boosters. So ground zero for sexual regenerative therapies is take a nitric oxide booster. Citrulline based is the best. In all of the studies, it shows that that's the most bioavailable for people over 40. And by the time you're 40 or 50, you have 50% of the nitric oxide production you had when you were 20. So you're just not
Wow.
pumping the blood around. Now, of course, doing high intensity interval training, getting pink in the face when you exercise, that's really going to help you
Hmm.
keep your vascular system strong. But these are all things that you can kind of reverse and top up your nitric oxide. For guys that are reliant on Viagra, Levitra, Cialis, and other PDE5 inhibitors, it's really, really helpful. I often say to my guys, top up your nitric oxide stores, and then you can potentially just go from a 60 milligram standard dose of Viagra down to maybe 10, 20, maybe even 5 milligrams sublingual. Just put it under your tongue. It bypasses the stomach acid in the liver, goes right into your blood system, and you may need to use much less pharmaceutical support for erectile function. For
Hmm.
women, we find that generally our biggest issue is loss of vaginal lubrication, thinning of the vaginal lining, the tissue in the
Right.
vagina. And then it doesn't hold as much lubrication either because it's thinner and more delicate. We have painful sex. And definitely for both parties, HRT, hormone replacement therapy,
Hmm.
is beneficial for the large majority of people out there. There
I've
are
been doing it for 10
outliers.
years. I've been
I've been
using it
doing
for
it for
10 years.
25. I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone for women is really helpful. And one of the things I like, let me show you a couple things. One thing I like is um, this nitric oxide supplement Flow, FLOW, because it's food derived. I like things that are made from real fruits and vegetables rather than synthesized in a lab whenever I can get them. I'd
Right.
rather have my iodine from shellfish because I'm not allergic than I would to have, some iodine created in a lab. Same with this. This is from watermelon, and it's organic watermelon, organic spinach, pine bark, and organic cherries, which gives you vitamin C to help with absorption. Let me give you a link to this because people are always like, what was the link? It's called Flow. So if you go to buyflownow.com, you can get the Flow nitric oxide booster. And then this is another product that I really like. It's called Glow Below. This is made by my girlfriend, Dr. Michelle Sands. It's at getglowbelow.com. And what I like about it is it's a topical vaginal estrogen serum that uses Biest, two kinds of estrogen, estriol and estradiol, which work well together. And you can put this on your labia and in your vagina, and it helps put more estrogen in those estrogen receptors. So your tissue's not thinning, you're not getting that labial laxity, you're not getting that clitoral laxity, etc. She also makes a DHEA version for women that don't want to take estrogen, but do want to have some support with all that thinning tissue. And I use this also, Sandee, on my face, my neck, the back of my hands, and on my arms. So estrogen topically on the skin works very well to keep the tissue from getting thin as you age. So that's another thing that's very, very good for women. And then I also like testosterone therapy for both men and women. And for women, having a topical testosterone in a cream that you can apply to the clitoral structures and the labial structures will really keep it meaty and strong and keep your libido higher. So the combination of the nitric oxide with the HRT gives you both the blood flow that you need into the system and the suppleness of the system to keep it from atrophy, shrinking, and hurting. I think those are really important things. And then there's a product that I also like. This is for women. It's called it's at vaginadevice.com. I've learned always say the links because people are like, what, where was that thing? This is very interesting. This is an intravaginal at-home restoration device, and it uses red light therapy, photobiomodulation inside the vagina to stimulate the mitochondria so that the mitochondria help rebuild the vaginal lining more quickly. The red light also helps build glycogen levels. Glycogens are the sugars that the good vaginal microbiome eats. They need it, and your glycogen depletes as your estrogen depletes. So when you add estrogen and you add red light, you're reversing vaginal dysbiosis issues. You're reversing laxity, loss of lubrication. And what I like about this too is that it has warmth, which recollagenates the tissue, and it has vibration, which also helps with Kegel toning. Because with that loss of tissue volume, you're getting prolapsed organs, you're getting incontinence, and so this helps reverse those kinds of things. If it's not enough, or if you're also having clitoral atrophy, labial atrophy, and loss of sensation. Loss of sensation happens to both men and women. And for women, we basically have like vanishing clit, vanishing labia. What I recommend is GAINSWave. GAINSWave is a treatment you go to practitioners, and like they're GAINSWave doctors, basically urologists, gynecologists, doctors of Oriental medicine,
Is that the
things like
device
that.
you sit on?
No, that's Emcella. That's a vibration kind of a thing.
Okay.
The GAINSWave is an acoustic wave technology that is put onto the the vulvovaginal tissue and or onto the penile tissue, stimulates new tissue growth, healing growth factors, helps rebuild that tissue that you lose as you age. Just like, you know how over time as we age, we can shrink and get tiny. Like everything shrinking, so is our genitals. So it's a way to reconstitute and regrow that tissue. And then there's enhancement too. So another thing I really like are, let me show you this, vacuum erection devices, penis pumps. Penis pumps, if you use the right pump, and you've got to get a cylinder that fits the right size or you're not going to make progress. What it will do is it will reverse the atrophy of an aging penis, but you can go on to continue your pumping routine and actually increase overall penile volume 20 to 25% with consistent, like 3 times a week with a pumping session over 10 months to a year. You can grow the volume of the penile because you're building new tissue with it. It's pulling blood flow into the tissue and stimulating new growth, new capillaries, and then new nerves. So guys that have sensation loss or they are struggling to achieve climax, pumping works really well for them. And I have a guide to pumping protocols. It's at pumpingguide.com about exactly how it works, how to pump, the best pumps, what to know, what to watch out for, etc. That works really well. And then kind of the frosting on the cake would be PRP exosome stem cell injections into the genitals. And some people are like,
Okay.
injections, but you're numbed. It's lidocaine. You don't even feel it.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
done a lot of PRP and it's great, but I prefer stem cells now. They're a little more expensive, but the prices are coming down and they really help reconstitute tissue and reverse all these problems. They're an accelerant. They're like really help
Yes.
all these other things. And I like to have, I'll wrap it up by saying that I always like to have budget, mid-range, and luxury. So you can decide what your budget
Yep.
can do. And so like nitric oxide is, 20, $25 a month. It's totally worth it because it's cognitive function, it's muscle growth, it's
Right.
skin beauty, it's hair growth. It's like, it's the, just do that, number one. But
Right.
then you can do, like you can put on the topical, the glow below, you could use the vagina device, you could go get GAINSWaves, then you could add, and you can do penis pumping. Penis pumping is very inexpensive. The whole device is a couple $100. It lasts forever. And the new system comes with, that I recommend. They went from offering 2 cylinders to 4 cylinders in the pack for only $20 more because guys were growing out of their cylinders so fast. It was working so well that they were constantly like, I need a bigger one. I need a bigger one. So they upped
Oh,
the
to have such
cylinders.
problem then.
I know. Yeah, a lot of guys are like, I don't believe her that she's selling snake oil or whatever. And I'm like, okay, dude. It's called progressive overload. It's mitochondrial genesis and cellular biogenesis, and it's blood carrying capacity, and it's vascularization, and it's all of these things that are working. And I've helped over almost 250,000 men reverse atrophy and go on to have a bigger penis. It's just an area of expertise that I thought was really important to get out of the closet and into the light, because men struggle of not being able to have intercourse with their partners, and they want to, and their partners want to. And it's like the simplest little device. Urologists give them out all the time, but a lot of guys don't even, they don't even talk. They don't go to a urologist. They're not taking
Well,
care of
because
themselves.
it's such a bang to their ego, like I think that men just, some men especially, they don't want to talk about it
Yeah.
because they're embarrassed or they're ashamed or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Oh
can
my gosh.
reverse. It can all be reversed. At 63, I have the most juicy, responsive, genital structures of my lifetime, more so than in my 20s and 30s, because it's a use it or lose it type of a thing. And the more you do it, the better you get. Like anything else, that's what sex is. There's always
Well,
something more.
everything is a practice. So we'll just wrap it up there.
Yes.
Happiness is a
Yep.
practice. Sex is a practice. Having orgasms is a practice.
Yep.
Self-love is a practice.
Yeah.
Everything's a practice. So glad to have you on today to give
Thank you,
everyone
Sandee.
a lot of insight. I mean, this information is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Good.
Is there one website? Is it just
Yeah.
susanbratton.com to find?
I'd say I recommend that your fans go to betterlover.com. I have an email
Betterlover.com.
newsletter there that you can sign up for. And I
Okay.
send out 2 emails a week with a lot of this kind of stuff, communication
Okay.
techniques, skills,
Yep.
all kinds of things. And if you get an email from me and you have a question for me, you can reply to any email that goes out. I personally get your reply and I will answer you. And often 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, I've got a video to answer that, or I've got an article to answer that, or here's a free ebook to
Right.
answer that, or try this thing. So it's really, really, sometimes people just don't know where to go to get the information or even what to ask for. And I like to help people. And it's what your questions make me good at what I do. So I always encourage people to get on my newsletter at betterlover.com. And then if you need me, I'm here.
Love it. Yes, betterlover.com. We all ought to be
a better
striving
lover.
to be better lovers. Absolutely. Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. I know
Happy
I'm being a little
partner, happy life, I
happy
think.
partner, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Susan, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sandee.
This is such a great conversation. And yeah, I think I was blushing a little bit when we started, but luckily you're doing all the talking and you're the expert here because
Well, what I found is that people hear it and they might get a little like, oh, whoa. And then they hear it and they're like, that wasn't so bad. That was actually really
no,
helpful. I didn't die.
and
I'm
nobody's
still
going to die.
here.
Yeah, nobody's going to die listening to this. And folks, you're not going to die if you check out her website. And, maybe this is a great place for people to have that conversation with their partner that maybe they haven't wanted to have, or they didn't, that just having that conversation about sex with your partner is huge. And it
Yeah,
brings down walls and you get closer. Yeah, so
definitely.
important. So important. All right, Susan, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening,
My pleasure.
everyone. And I hope that you and your family are happy and healthy and that your lives are filled with peace, joy, and lots of intimacy and sex. Let's just
Yay.
say it.
Let's
Lots of
say it.
sex.
Yeah, hot sex.
Take care, everyone.